The Allegretto in C minor by Schubert is not difficult technically, but there are real musical challenges in this wonderful piece. The beginning of the Allegretto is an ideal introduction to the study of the natural rise and fall of the melody. The hands play the same melody an octave apart. The first phrase begins on C, rises with a slight crescendo to the high E flat, and then falls with a slight diminuendo back to C. Notice how the first phrase uses the melodic pitch C. The phrase begins with 2 eighth note Cs, the agogic accent is an octave above, and the phrase ends on the original pitch level, the quarter note C. We can call C the focal pitch. Within each phrase, a pitch that is repeated will always change its musical function. In this phrase, the upbeat C is less accented than the C that begins the slur. We must save the musical emphasis for the agogic high C. We can give the high C a slight tenuto and more tone for sustaining power. The final C that ends the phrase should not have any accent. The second phrase modulates to E-flat major. The mode change is an essential element of Schubert's music. We must change the feeling, the sound, and the psychological effect of the phrase wherever Schubert changes mode. In the 19th century, musicians often spoke of phrasing in terms of lightness and shade. The unison melodies in C minor seem to cast a dark shadow. The E-flat major phrase must sound luminous, even though the dynamic is pianissimo, because the theme is now set as melody and harmony. Notice the E-flat focal pitch in this phrase. Once again, we begin and end with E-flats, but here the second half of the phrase rises to the agogic accent, the E-flat an octave higher, marked with a fermata. We should take time on the fermata, almost as if Schubert had written the word rubato. At measure 17, Schubert begins a long 12-bar phrase where the unison setting changes to a canon between the hands. Notice that the phrase always crosses the bar line and never starts on the downbeat. Without the agogic accent, there is a much greater sense of momentum and drama. The phrase must move to the powerful octave Gs in measure 25 that resonate through the rest in measure 26. The quiet chords that follow the rest echo this gesture and fade to silence. After the fermata and agogic silence, the music resumes in C major, but stays in the parallel major only briefly. In this musical story, happiness lasts only a brief moment. Schubert returns to C minor. The intensity of the phrase grows as it seeks the high B flat, where Schubert has written the strongest dynamic. Schubert signals the end of this section with an agogic fermata over the C minor chord. In Schubert, we can sing the phrase inwardly to bring a vocal ideal to our melodic phrasing. Although this piece does not have the technical challenges we find in the great sonatas and the Wanderer Fantasy, the Allegretto in C minor is a perfect introduction to the piano music of the great Franz Schubert. When we master the Allegretto, we are well on our way to becoming true musicians at the piano.